Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com for Wednesday, April 14th. Kevin Rogers and Thom Cunningham with you. Tom was busy watching movies yesterday for the Oscars. That's why he wasn't with us, so he's back now.
That's right.
And we got to take a look at a lot of things today. We'll look back at NBA from last night, also Major League Baseball as well. And we'll hit on the next golf tournament, which is coming up on Thursday. But first, want to give you the PSA before we get started that our contest that we started yesterday, we got a good response from, and we're looking forward to doing this more every day.
Yep.
Very, very easy. You have to be eligible for this contest, a couple things. Number one, you have to be a subscriber to VegasInsider.com on our YouTube channel. Number two, you have to be registered with an ID on VegasInsider.com.
Which is free.
Easy. Look at it. There's a big yellow button right here. You can't miss it. Okay? You click on the register button, and through there, you end up going to the free membership page. Hit register now. All right? If you're not registered. If you're registered, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're okay. But create an ID, a password, put all your information there, email, first name, last name. It's free. So you don't have to worry about paying anything. Just make sure you're a member. Now, the next part is the fun part. That's not the fun part. The fun part is you give us a best bet for tonight. It doesn't have to be a side or total. It can be,
right,
but it could be a first inning play, a first 5-inning play in baseball. It could be a first period play in hockey.
Could be a first set result in tennis. I mean, it could be any sport that's going on today.
Right. So it doesn't matter. You're not limited to sides or totals or money lines. You have pretty much anything.
Right.
And you put your name, your user ID in the comments section of our video, and also your best play for the day.
Yep.
And we will choose. If you win, you have to win the play. If you lose the play, you don't win. If you win, then you will be eligible to win a free week's worth of selections from one of our handicappers. Now, yesterday, our winner was, once I get it on the screen here.
It's a hockey game.
Get it here.
He got the over 6.
Yeah, this was yesterday's YouTube, and it was our friend Sir Roberts. He had the over in the Capitals and Flyers. So
yep,
he ended up getting that one. So that's it. Simple as that. You register. Make sure you have an ID on VegasInsider.com, a user ID. You're a subscriber on our YouTube channel. Give us a winner for tonight, and then you'll be eligible to win a free week's worth of picks from any handicapper at VegasInsider.com. So just want to put that out there. So get it going. And you can do it under the comments section under today's Daily Insider video. So very simple there. All right, so let's get to it, Tom.
Yes.
And NBA from last night. Tonight you got Nets Sixers, big game. We'll talk about this in a second.
Yeah.
But let's look back at yesterday in the NBA. First, we're going to start with the afternoon game. Brooklyn, Minnesota. That one was the rescheduled game from the night before. The game got postponed due to the civil unrest in Minneapolis. So they played yesterday afternoon in front of no fans. No Karl Anthony Towns, no Kyrie, but it doesn't matter because the Nets just outclassed the Timberwolves. They win 127-97. It's kind of one of those games, Tom, where you're like, okay, this is really, really easy.
Yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall in this game. Sometimes people will tend to overthink some things. When you see Minnesota at home, they've covered a few times now. You're thinking, okay, no Kyrie Irving, they might compete, but no. I think Brooklyn, every night, they kind of just remind everyone they are legit. And I know this is like, Kyrie was out and this whole Brooklyn roster is fresh and it's new. But I really don't think we truly know how dangerous this Brooklyn Nets team is. Just wait till they're fully healthy and in the postseason. I mean, they're beating 30-point win over Minnesota. As good as Brooklyn is advertised to be, I think they're better, personally.
Yeah, and now Brooklyn has a huge game with Philadelphia coming up tonight for the top spot in the Atlantic Division. Among the other games last night, the Hawks without Trae Young, they beat the Raptors 108-103, and that game closed with Atlanta they were favored, and then it closed with Toronto as a favorite with the Trae Young news and him being out. But the the Raptors, they made it close to the end, but Atlanta was kind of in control that whole game.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto, they're just on a skid. Actually, when I did see that Toronto was the favorite, I actually went with Atlanta in this game for a few different reasons that we won't get into. But I'm not surprised by this at all. And, it's quite amazing the drop-off Toronto has seen this year compared to what they've done the past two.
And Atlanta, another big win for them on the road after knocking off Charlotte and then beating Toronto. And Atlanta's right in the mix of that Southeast Division race. The Clippers beat the Pacers 126-115. Another time where the Pacers, they're competitive, but yet they end up losing in that one to L.A. No Kawhi for the Clippers. And
Paul played well, though.
Yeah, Indiana's not been a good home underdog this year. It's that simple. They've just not been a good team to rely on as a home underdog. And I saw a stat on the broadcast last night on TNT. Pacers against below 500 teams, great.
Yeah.
Problem is that's not going to be who you're facing in the playoffs.
Exactly.
So they play better teams, and they end up losing to them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only consistent bet that has hit with Indiana lately is Domantas Sabonis over 12.5, 13.5 rebounds. The guy's been getting 14 or more lately. And, Paul George, going to the other side of this game, this is now, I believe, the fourth straight game he's scored 30 or more points. And so it's nice to see Paul George consistently playing at a high level that we know he's capable of playing at.
The Lakers beat the Hornets in kind of a wacky game. Now, number one, Charlotte was down 4 starters. Gordon Hayward's out. Malik Monk is out. LaMelo Ball's been out for a while.
Right.
P.J. Washington was out. Terry Rozier was out.
Wow.
And the Lakers closed as a short favorite.
Yeah.
Lakers were up 3 at the end of 1. Hornets went on something like a 15-3 run or 13-3 run to start the second. You're like, oh, wow, okay, Charlotte's playing well. The Lakers came back, took the lead at halftime. They went on a 13-2 run to take the lead at the half. So if you had L.A., probably a pick 'em for the first half, you end up winning that one. Very, very lucky because that was 3 minutes left. The Hornets were in control towards halftime. The Lakers went on a big run. Lakers go up 8 going into they outscored by 8 in the third. Then they go to the fourth. Lakers were up 8-10 points. Hornets got it down to 2 at the end, but then Alex Caruso hit a big 3 towards the end and got some breathing room there, and the Lakers really clamped down defensively. But for LA, it's a really good finish to that road trip where they lost to the Knicks, but they beat the Hornets, they beat the Nets, they beat the Raptors, so LA they kept their head above water even without LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes to the conversation that we had yesterday with the lineups. We're getting closer to the NBA playoffs, and so you're starting to see coaches mix and match their lineups a lot more late in the day, too. And we've already come across 2 games with the Hawks and the Raptors and the Lakers and the Hornets where the line actually flipped due to that. So again, this is just another friendly reminder, another example of try to be patient before locking any NBA picks. Really wait for the lineups to come out because coaches are jumbling lineups as the season ends because of rest and other issues too. And we're living in the COVID, time of this season. So it just gives you a reminder that no matter whatever the spread is when you wake up in the morning, there's a good chance it will change because NBA coaches are manipulating lineups more often now than they were at the beginning of the year. So just keep that in mind as this Lakers-Hornets game is just another example of that.
One of the crazier games, just the way the swings happen, Oklahoma City and Utah. Oklahoma City was up 17 on Utah, getting nearly 17. And then the Jazz went on a huge run. Jazz were actually up. They had they got up like 25 or so in this one.
A lot.
So you're down 17. You got scored by 42 points, but then Oklahoma City ends up getting the cover. So so many emotions. If you had Oklahoma City, you're feeling good about yourself.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, we're going to lose this game. And then if you're Utah, you almost got a miracle win. But now for the Jazz, that's 3 straight games at home as a double-digit favorite where they struggled with Sacramento before they pulled away. They lose outright to Washington. That was their first defeat at home in 2021. And then Oklahoma City, who's got the worst talent base in the league right now, has you down 17 and you struggle. So for Utah, they're trying to get through these doldrums now where, I hate to say it like this, these are games you don't want to play.
Right.
You're not motivated to play Oklahoma City. You're not motivated to play Washington.
Yeah, and they're not motivated by the spread. I mean, they're not betting on these games that we know of, so they don't really care as long as they win the game. Now, 16.5, if you're taking a 16.5 spread in the NBA, good luck to you. I don't care how good the team is. I don't care how bad the opponent is. These are all professionals, and 17 points is a ton. at the professional level. My concern with Utah, if you took that 16.5 at home, whatever. The concern with Utah for me is on the road against good teams covering the spread. Not covering 16.5 at home against anybody is not really a huge concern for me, but if this game was on the road against let's say, Clippers or the Phoenix Suns, and it's a 6.5, 5, even a 4 or 3 point spread, and they don't cover, that's where the concern for me is with Utah, because they do not play as well on the road against good teams as they do at home. They've won, 26 in a row at home? And so, yeah, I do think that the home court advantage might be a factor for Utah in the playoffs. They don't want to be on the road a lot, so look for Utah to really, really string together a bunch of wins at the end of the year. They might not cover, but I do think Utah has motivation to get home court advantage in the postseason, because, quite frankly, this NBA season has shown that Utah is going to need it if they want to get to the finals.
Yeah, you can't afford to lose those games, so they end up beating Oklahoma City last night. The team that's right behind them is Phoenix, and the Suns got off to a bit of a slow start last night. They were down 8 after 1, but then you see the final 3 quarters with the Heat, where they put up 16, 14, they have a 22. They just don't play well there. And Phoenix, I had mentioned this yesterday, Tom, that the Suns, in spite of them playing with no rest after they beat Houston 2 nights ago, is a huge favorite. Phoenix has been a very good short favorite this season, and they took care of business. They got the sweep of the Heat. Yeah,
and they play well against the West, so it's good to see them beat a okay team in the East. I do think Miami is better than their record says. So it's good to see if you're a Phoenix fan. I mean, this was just a very, very convincing win. My conviction with Phoenix is not where it should be, though, and I've seen what Chris Paul can do in the postseason, and what he tends to do with a little above average rosters is that he tends to get them past the first round, maybe second, but no more than that. So really, although Phoenix has been very impressive at home, they've been very impressive against the West this season, it's going to come down, their success for me at least is going to come down to what they can do in the postseason, because I think they're better than what a lot of people think they are, and I think that locker room thinks they're better than what a lot of people think they are too. So it'll be interesting to see what Phoenix can do moving forward.
The final game of the night was Boston and Portland, and the Celtics were down early in that game, and they come back and they hold off the Blazers by 116-115. And Boston's now playing very well. That after they've had so many up and downs this year, that they end up beating Denver Sunday, beating Portland. Those are 2 really good victories on the road for a team that has struggled mightily on the road, and that's 5 straight covers on the road for the Celtics. So now they're kind of turning it around. And I really believe, Tom, that Portland, since that Gary Trent trade, sending him to the Raptors,
I still don't get that.
And Norman Powell's a good player. I'm
right.
not going to take it. And Gary Trent feels like, rejuvenated playing with the Raptors in spite of all their issues. But since that trade, the Blazers are 5-5, and all the wins are against garbage teams. All the losses are against quality teams. So now you kind of wonder if Portland maybe made a mistake there. Look, they're not winning the Northwest, but they were gone early in the bubble last year against the Lakers. They won that crazy game against the Grizzlies in the play-in game. But I feel like Portland now, they're kind of going on the downturn.
Oh, they've been on the downturn lately. And I do think there's a lot of merit to the Gary Trent Jr. trade that you mentioned. I mean, quite frankly, he has had a more productive season than Norman Powell. He's had a much more consistent season. As a matter of fact, when that trade went down, Gary Trent was near the top of the favorites for Sixth Man of the Year. And so I don't get why they traded Gary Trent Jr. Now, I know you got players back that are healthy, but Gary Trent Jr. coming off the bench was one of the better bench players in the NBA with Portland. And so I understand that you had players come back, so Trent might not have seen the floor as often, but you essentially traded Gary Trent for a downgraded Gary Trent in Norman Powell. Now, Norman Powell has had a few 30-plus games this season, but in terms of consistent play, Gary Trent has probably seen more consistency in terms of scoring 16 points or more per game. So I do think there's a lot of merit to what you're saying with the Gary Trent Jr. trade, Kevin, and Portland might be feeling the after effects of that right now.
Now let's go over to tonight's card, and Brooklyn, Philly, that's the big one in the Atlantic. See that 37-17 both teams, and Philadelphia won the last meeting. Brooklyn won the first meeting. That's had nobody in the lineup. That was before the James Harden trade. Kyrie was out. Kevin Durant was out. They just didn't have many guys to turn to, but Brooklyn dominated Philadelphia the first time at Barclays Center, and then the Sixers won the last meeting at Wells Fargo.
Right.
And now Brooklyn plays with no rest against Philadelphia after winning at Minnesota yesterday, and the 76ers, again, dominant team at home, laying 6.5, and you see the side where a lot of people want to back Brooklyn here. James Harden's still out.
Yeah.
Kyrie, we don't know his status. Durant's going to play, but the 76ers, though, I mean, they've just been on fire.
Yeah, Philly, they've won 5 straight home games when they face Brooklyn. Joel Embiid, he's also scored 33 points or more in 5 of 6 home games when facing the Eastern Conference. So when Philly is the favorite. So there's a lot of conviction, I think, in not only Joel Embiid playing well tonight, but Philly getting the job done. And if you recall, Ben Simmons, he's kind of angry. He's playing with a little chip on his shoulder, and he actually called out Brooklyn and has basically ignited a rivalry. It didn't really come naturally, but Ben Simmons is taking it upon himself to start it. So I do think this game is going to be intense. You do have playoff feeling in this game. But Philly at home, they do very well at home. Like I said, they just won 5 in a row at home when facing Brooklyn. But Brooklyn has covered the spread in 6 of 7 games when they're facing a team with a winning record. And as we mentioned earlier, Brooklyn, I think, is more dangerous than people might think they are. So I'm expecting a lot of points in this game. Not sure what is the over-under, 226.5. Might want to look to the over in that one.
Cleveland and Charlotte, that's one of the early games tonight. And the Hornets, off that loss to the Lakers last night, we don't know what P.J. Washington's condition is, what Terry Rozier's condition is. I mean, for Cleveland, Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, they're both questionable too.
Right.
So a lot of injury news in this game. That's why it's very tough right now to handicap it. And the Hornets playing with no rest. These teams last played an opening night, and Cleveland destroyed Charlotte at home. And it was a huge surprise. The Hornets, after getting Gordon Hayward, they were a 3-point favorite, and Cleveland really blasted them. And Cleveland, they're coming off a couple losses in their last few games, but they play better on the road. Recently, they've won at Chicago, they've won at San Antonio, so Cleveland really not afraid. There's not a lot of talent in that Cavs team, but also with Charlotte's missing all these starters, I mean, it's hard to make a case for them too. Yeah,
and it's hard to make any player prop bets if you don't know who's starting. But again, this goes back to the conversation of you got to really wait for these lineups to come out before you can make any sort of bet. Especially now is more crucial of a time in the NBA season than any. But Charlotte does play well at home against bad teams. The Hornets, they've won 6 straight home games when they face a team with a losing record. Also, Charlotte has covered the spread in 6 straight home games when playing the second game of a back-to-back. So there are some trends that point in the direction of Charlotte winning this game. But again, there's so many key players that are questionable. You have to wait for the lines to come out before making a decision in this one.
The Raptors are 1-11 with no rest this season.
Yeah.
I mean, which is...
So they're due, right?
That's what it feels like. If they do okay, take them, and they get blown out again. So the Raptors at home, after losing the Hawks last night, they get San Antonio. And the Spurs, all of a sudden, now they've woken up from the dead, that they beat the Mavericks, they beat the Magic. They're back at 500.
Yeah.
And looking at that Southwest race where it seemed like Dallas was kind of running away with it. And Dallas plays Memphis tonight, and we'll get to that in a second. But Dallas was kind of distancing themselves from Memphis and San Antonio. The Spurs were struggling. Now the Spurs have kind of come back a little bit, and they're playing now these winnable games all of a sudden that they can start to chip away at the Mavericks, and of course beating them on Sunday is very big. Now they get Toronto in Tampa, and I don't know what to say about the Raptors anymore. I mean, I've run out of things because they've been so bad over the last
season.
The season. But when you think about, like, let's just refer to it, so I don't just guess here. But going back to February 23rd, this is the one here, Tom. They had a 4-game winning streak here. Since February 23rd, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins. Okay. Cleveland, Golden State without Steph Curry. That's a good one over Denver they had. Houston's terrible. So they've been bad, the Raptors. Look at all the ATS losses. It's hard to make a case for them right
They're
now.
like one of the worst teams in the league, and you probably wouldn't think of that. But they are. In San Antonio, you mentioned they're kind of on the upswing. They've covered the spread in 8 of 9 games when facing Toronto, so they have that going for them. You mentioned the 1-11 back-to-backs for Toronto. They have lost 7 straight games when playing the second game of a back-to-back. And I do think there is a player prop to consider. Well, I think there's 2. I think DeMar DeRozan, he's become more of a passer lately, which might be a reason why San Antonio is seeing a little bit more success. He's becoming more of a passer first, shooter second. DeMar DeRozan, he's seen 7 or more assists in 4 or 5 games when facing Toronto, so maybe look into the DeMar DeRozan assist total prop market. And then Jacob, you got to help me with this last name, Poltol.
No, yeah, from Utah.
He used to play there. Now, so now he's with Toronto, but he has seen a double-double in 5 of 9 games. So if there is value, plus value for Jacob Poltol to see a double-double, then I absolutely would consider it because he has seen one in 5 of 9. Kind of going under the radar there. You might be able to get some good value for him there.
Orlando and Chicago. I actually like the Magic in this game. Orlando's getting 9.5. They went 0-4 on their recent homestand. They were blown out in the last 2 by Milwaukee and San Antonio.
Yeah.
And now they got Chicago tonight. The Bulls are off of a 3-game losing streak to end their road trip. They lost at Minnesota, they lost at Memphis, and they lost at Atlanta. So now you're laying 9.5. This is the biggest number the Bulls have laid all year.
It's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, and also Orlando, their last road trip, they covered against the Lakers.
Yep.
They beat the Clippers outright. They covered against the Nuggets. They hung in a lot of these games. And look, the roster's torn apart. We get it. But I just think after these 2 bad performances they had at home against, Milwaukee's obviously, they're a championship, caliber team.
Yeah.
And San Antonio, who's hanging around the playoffs. Now you're playing Chicago, who is so inconsistent. I don't trust them in the favorite role. I think Orlando's worth a look here.
Yeah, Chicago might win straight up, but I do like Orlando as well. Also, real quickly, Poltol, he plays for the Spurs. He used to play for the Raptors.
He was the DeMar DeRozan trade,
exactly.
Right?
He's been back and forth, but he does play for the Spurs now, so get that out of the way.
Yeah.
The Bulls, though, I'm with you. There's not a lot of conviction here in them covering. Orlando, they've covered the spread in 4 or 5 road games. We've talked about on this show multiple times how Orlando, they've been covering pretty well. And I don't know really if it has a lot to do with the high spreads or the talent on that team is a little bit better than advertised, but Orlando does cover. And I would be weary on taking the Bulls with such a large spread. I do think Chicago will win this game straight up. But 9.5 for against a team that is playing very well on the road. I say very well in terms of betting. They cover the spread well. I would be hesitant to take the Bulls. So just be weary of Chicago if you're fancying the Bulls tonight.
Knicks and Pelicans in New Orleans, and the Knicks, they've covered 6 straight games against the spread. Both teams have won 3 in a row this year. Knicks have not won 4 straight this year. Just put that out there.
Yeah.
But the Knicks also 6-1 against the spread. Their last 7 as a road dog, and they're 6-1 against the spread. Their last 7 as a dog of 3 or less. So when they're a close dog, they actually do a good job of covering. And they've had a lot of these close games that they have lost, but they've covered. And now you're playing New Orleans, just blew out Sacramento.
Yeah.
I just have a problem laying points to the Pelicans. Simple as that.
Well, New York has covered in 6 straight games. They have also won 11 of their last 14 games when they're facing a team with a losing record. I think this game is very tricky to bet on. Zion Williamson, though, should touch 30 points. He has seen 30 points in 4 straight home games. So if there's a prop market for Zion Williamson anywhere but 29.5 or lower, I would jump on those because, quite frankly, I like what New York has done. I love Thibodeau in terms of his grittiness that he brings when he's coaching a team. But I'm not going to wager on New York being able to slow Zion down, especially at home where he thrives. So of all the bets, I would look at Zion touching a minimum of 30 points in this game.
Milwaukee, Minnesota. That's a 4:30 game at Target Center. So second straight day game for the Timberwolves, and we don't know what Karl Anthony Towns' status is. Milwaukee's laying 9.5. They're off that blowout over Orlando a few days ago. This feels to me like a stay-away game.
Yeah, I think it could be. Milwaukee, though, they're solid. And they should cover. I think they should cover now. Milwaukee struggles on the road against the West, but you're talking about Minnesota, who's 14-41. So I personally am going to give the benefit of the doubt to the better team here. I do think 9.5 is a bit short considering Cat might not play. But Anthony Edwards, my goodness, he has been just unbelievable as a rookie this year. He might not know who Alex Rodriguez is, but he is the front runner for Rookie of the Year now, and I do think those odds are worth taking. It's plus 100 last I checked.
You can't say former baseball player. You got to say J-Lo's fiance, and maybe that would have ruined Anthony Edwards.
You got to connect with the kids these days.
I mean, she's 50, but still, she's great at 50, but still. The Clippers and the Pistons in Detroit, and the Pistons off of that long road trip, and the Clippers now playing with no rest. So you kind of wonder what they have in the tank. And these teams just played a few days ago at Staples Center, and the Pistons, who, look, Jerry Grant's been banged up for them. Against the Clippers, they just lost by 7, Detroit, getting 13. So they've been so up and down against the spread. Look at this. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. So you would think they're due for a non-cover.
Right.
They just can't really...
Can't get back-to-backs, really.
And they're back from this long road trip now.
Yeah.
And, again, it's not technically a home and home since the Clippers played the Pacers last night. But for L.A., you would think they're going to win this one. But, again, the question is playing with no rest, how they'll do.
Well, they have actually covered in 7 straight road games when playing the second game of a back-to-back. And notice all those home games right there. So on the road, right, they cover on the road in back-to-back games. So they, there is that conviction there. But again, we don't know who's in the lineup for this game. And so with that said, I would wait. But if you're impatient, I think taking the Clippers is fine right now. That's just me.
5-0 this year. 5-0 straight up against the spread on the road with no rest for the Clippers. They're winning these games, and they're beating the Cavs, the Magic, the Pistons, like these teams that are in the Pistons class. So
right.
Don't be afraid to lay it just because they're taking care. They're not letting down against those teams. Golden State, Oklahoma City. A few years ago, this was like the Western Conference Finals. Now it's just another game. But Oklahoma City, off of that loss to Utah last night, which they covered. Now Golden State's like 11. That still seems.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Too much. It's
and
too much.
These teams have not played each other this year. Golden State laying 11 in this one, and they are coming off of the victory over Denver a few nights ago. So
scroll up.
The Warriors.
Okay, they covered the 11 to Houston, but again, that's Houston.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, what's the difference between Houston and Oklahoma City?
I guess that's true. Yeah.
But Golden
Not much.
State, they've won 3 in a row. Once that was this game. I remember fading them, playing that called system, playing that trend, fading them that one. They won by 9. They have not won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
They won once. So look for Golden State. I don't know. Maybe it's the time to take Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma City in this. The underdog has actually covered the spread in 6 of 7 games played between Oklahoma City and Golden State. So if that trend continues, the high point, or not the point total, the high spread. I like the conviction in the corner of Oklahoma City in this one. They're playing at home. I think there's a lot to like about the Thunder in this one, especially with minus 11. I think they cover that.
Yeah, you got to expect Steph to go off.
Yeah. To Steph, he scored 36 points or more in 5 of 6 games. So if you are hesitant on a winner, look into the prop market total. Steph Curry should clear 30, 32 points in this one.
Indiana with no rest, they go to Houston, and the Rockets have actually been a pretty good ATS team of late. I mean, 14-40 is nuts.
They've actually covered the spread in 6 of 7 home games against Indiana, too.
Well,
so bear that in mind.
Well, I'm wrong. Let me correct myself. I said, they had a couple covers against Phoenix, but 3-2, it's not convincing. But, you look back at all of these, and granted, the Toronto win snapped the 20-game losing streak. Won 3 games since. Houston's still not a good team.
No, they're not.
Indiana, God, I hate to say it like this, they're better than Houston. I know Indiana, but what did I say earlier, Tom? Indiana beats these teams.
Yeah.
They beat the bad teams. They lose to the good teams.
Right.
So you kind of wonder, even if you got to lay this amount of points with the Pacers with no rest, it's not crazy.
No. And I think that the short spread, I would be hesitant to take Houston. What Houston has going for them, though, is they tend to cover against Indiana more times than not, and they're at home. Houston, though, they've actually lost 15 of 17 games at home. So it's not like they have home court advantage by any means. I think if the spread was higher, if you're looking at 7.5 to 8.5, I might take Houston. I think 4.5 is a bit too short to consider Houston, although they do have the trend of covering against Indiana more times than not. I think going kind of to my point earlier, benefit of the doubt goes to the better team in this one.
Dallas and Memphis, that's a key game in the Southwest, and the door's still open for San Antonio if they can go on a run here.
Yeah.
And Dallas has lost 2 straight. They fall to Philadelphia and San Antonio at home. Now they go on the road. They're laying points against Memphis. They beat Memphis earlier this season at home. Give you this number. Memphis straight up as a home underdog this season, 2-9.
Oh, wow.
Now they've covered a lot of those.
Right.
But straight up, and that I say this straight up because you can't count it the same way. If you're a 6-point dog and you cover, that's great. Now you're just 2.5.
Yeah.
And I gotta believe Dallas is, again, I hate using this term, but Dallas is motivated here after losing the 2 games at home. I gotta believe they're gonna be focused here. Where Memphis coming off of, they snapped their losing streak. They beat Chicago a few nights ago, but Mavs, I mean, they got the better talent out there. No, the Grizzlies with Ja Morant, but Dallas still with Luka. Porzingis plays. There's still better players on Dallas, and to lay 2.5 for Dallas. Actually been a good road favorite this season. 11-4 straight up, 10-5 against the spread. I just think a lot of things point to Dallas in this game.
Well, Dallas, they play well against Memphis. Dallas, they've won 4 of their last 5 when facing the Grizzlies. Dallas, they've also covered the spread in 5 of 6 games when playing in Memphis against the Grizzlies. So there's a lot to like about Dallas in this one. This game is riddled with prop betting. Luka Doncic has scored 31 points or more in 5 of 6 against a losing team. You've got Kristaps Porzingis, who scored 23 points or more in 3 straight games. You have Jonas Valanciunas. Keep your eye on him in this game. He has scored 20 points or more in 4 or 5 games, while also seeing 14 or more rebounds in 6 of 7 home games. I think between those 3 players, you could really do some damage in the prop betting market.
Washington and Sacramento is one of the 2 late games tonight, and man, I remember this game the first time they played in D.C. I had the over. It was a ridiculous over, and they had, give me the exact score, Sacramento beat them 121-119 on a 247.5 total. All right, so 247.5, which is nuts. De'Aaron Fox hit that jump over Bradley Beal. The Kings ended up winning, and this was the game, Tom, on the inbound where Russell Westbrook threw the inbound pass and he threw through everyone and no one touched it.
Yeah, that was insane.
And I'm not saying it could have tied the game and somebody would have had an opportunity there.
It's a bad turnover.
But that game was so over the pace. The fourth quarter, you needed I'm going to go back to this. So I want to get the exact number. March 17th, okay? Because this one really annoyed me, so I'm just going to tell everyone right here. March 17th. Let's go back here. Okay, so March 17th, this game in D.C. Okay. 38-34, 32-28, 36-27. So you have over 6, you have 72, 60, 63. Good shape. You need to get those 60s, over 60s.
Fourth quarter, right.
45 in the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, you had maybe less than 10 points scored. You're like, what the F is going on here?
Welcome to basketball.
But then you could have been saved if De'Aaron Fox misses that jumper. You go to overtime, 119, and you're going to get the 10 points in overtime. You're going to get the 10. You will. But he hits that jumper, contested jumper, and I'm like,
it's kind of similar to your March Madness championship game when you had the point total clearly going over in the first half, and then Gonzaga was just shut out in the second, and it goes under. Basketball, game of runs.
It was just like, I just remember that game. So anyway, so with all that being said, now my complaining's done. So Sacramento's back at home, and they're on this losing streak again.
7 in a row. When it rains, it pours with the Kings. They're a streaky team. We talked about it yesterday.
But even so, like, you're not even covering. You're not even covering in these games. They covered the 3 against Milwaukee without Giannis. But you go through the stretch of 7 straight losses. You're 1-6 against the spread.
Yeah.
Remember this one up here back earlier in the season? They went on this huge run. They didn't cover a game. Like they're not even being competitive in these games. So you might as well, if you think the Kings are going to, I mean, obviously getting 2 is nearly a pick 'em. It's not like Washington's laying 7.
Right.
But in these games, you don't see Sacramento that often covering in a loss, which is really an indictment.
Yeah, I don't see a reason to stick with Sacramento in this game. They're on one of their cold streaks right now, and Washington has now Beal back playing well with Russell. You've got Sacramento, as we mentioned, they've lost 7 in a row. You've got Washington, who has actually covered the spread in 5 of 6 games when facing a team with a losing record. So I would be hesitant on taking Sacramento in this game to win or with the spread. Don't be afraid to take Russell Westbrook triple-double market as well. He usually sees plus 125, somewhere in that range, plus 150. Some good value there. He has seen 26 points or more in 4 straight when facing Sacramento. Also, he has seen 14 or more rebounds in 9 of his last 11 games. So there's a lot to like about Russell Westbrook in the prop betting market, but overall, I think Washington is where your money needs to be in this game.
Well, I mean, Sacramento's an excellent team defensively, so they should shut down Russell Westbrook, right? That's the case. But it's the last game of the road trip, and coming off an upset over Utah, so you kind of wonder where the Wizards are.
Mentally.
That's
right.
Kind of,
are they playing on a high, or are they focused?
Last game, Miami-Denver. No Jamal Murray. He's out for the season for the Nuggets with torn ACL. Tough news for them.
Yeah.
The Heat off the loss to Phoenix. Now you got the tough trip going to Denver with no rest. They lost earlier this season at home to the Nuggets, but Jimmy Butler didn't play in that game for the Heat. So Miami getting 5 here, and again,
I don't like it.
What kind of response do you get from Denver after losing to Golden State and now not having Jamal Murray for the rest of the season?
I like Denver here. Miami, they've lost 6 of 7 road games when facing Denver on the second of a back-to-back. Now, I don't know if it has anything to do with the air altitude being thinner in Denver, but I do think there's something telling when Miami can't beat Denver in Denver after playing a game the day prior. So keep that in mind. I think it's tough for any team to go back-to-back road games with the second going to Denver to beat that team. Also, Miami, they have failed to cover the spread in 12 of 16 games when facing a team with a winning record. And so they do obviously struggle a lot more on the ATS against good teams. Now, playing the second game of a back-to-back in a city where the air is thin and stamina does become very important. I like Denver in this. Real quickly, going to the player prop betting, I like Michael Porter Jr. He has seen a double-double in 6 of 7 home games. So maybe look around Michael Porter Jr.'s prop betting in this game, but I do think Denver is where your betting should be focused on.
Let's look at baseball, Tom. And yesterday in the bigs, the Padres ended up losing to the Pirates 8-4.
Yeah.
San Diego went up 2-0 out of the chute. Blake Snell got 2 outs in the bottom of the first and didn't escape the first inning. That Pittsburgh ends up scoring 3 in the first, and they win that one 8-4. So if you had the Pirates as a plus 210 dog, congratulations.
Yeah.
But that's a tough one for Blake Snell, as he was looking good, and then all of a sudden he can't get in the third out.
Yeah. I wouldn't put too much into it. Pittsburgh has actually a few trends right now where you should be betting on them against the Padres. We'll get into the game today in a little bit. But I'm starting to wonder if Pittsburgh is a little bit better than advertised because they have been covering pretty well, and they've actually been winning a few games as underdogs. I know it's early, so we shouldn't really put all our apples into a basket, but I do think that the Pittsburgh Pirates are slightly better than we might all think they are. But we'll get to the game today in a little bit. There are some trends that do make you wonder if you should be taking the Pirates more.
Yeah, also the Mets sweep a doubleheader from the Phillies, so they play the third game of their 4-game set coming up tonight. The Marlins got down early 3-0 on the Braves, and they just exploded past Atlanta 14-8. So Pablo Lopez finally got his first win of the season. He pitched well the first 2 games, and didn't look good in the first inning against the Braves, but then his offense helped him out. And Max Fried, who pitched very well last season, that's a rough start for him. So the Braves now lose the first 2 to the Marlins. Yeah,
and we had talked about Miami's bats kind of holding them down right now. Well, they when it rains, it pours. They exploded in this game, and now what is that? 2 in a row Miami's beaten Atlanta. So this is a big game for the Braves tonight when they take on the Marlins, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I'm telling you, I liked Miami's 71.5 wins this year. It didn't start out the way I thought it would, but I think this Miami team is a lot more dangerous than people realize.
And so far, they played the Rays,
good
the Cardinals,
teams.
and the Braves. They're playing quality teams. Just wait until they start playing, Pirates or some of the Western teams. The Cubs, they had Kyle Hendricks starting, but he got scratched. So Alec Mills went for the Cubs. They got down 2-0 out of the chute, but they went 3-2 and a good pitching performance by Chicago. Did Alec Mills no-hit the Brewers last season too? Or one of the last 2 seasons. So he's pitched well against Milwaukee in his career. And Chicago's bats, which have been terrible this year. Look, the Cubs, they've struggled, and we talked about that they're their core, who knows who's going to get traded at the deadline, but that's a good comeback win for them last night.
Yeah, they beat the best pitcher on the Brewers staff, and so that's got to be encouraging. This is going to be a rat race in this division, and now Pittsburgh has kind of, again, it's early. I don't want to jump to the gun with the Pirates, but the Pirates have been boasting their shoulders, per se, early in the season. So this is going to be a very competitive division, and any divisional wins you can get, it doesn't matter if it's in May, it doesn't matter if it's in August. They are important. So it's a big, big win for Chicago, especially entering a day game now against the Milwaukee Brewers.
Washington gets blown out at St. Louis. The Cardinals get 9 in the 5th. Steven Strasburg closed bases pick against Jack Flaherty. Yeah. And the Cardinals have 3-0 with Jack Flaherty starts, so that's good. And they've had good run support in the 3 starts, 14-7 against the Marlins, I think 11 against the Reds. So that's a good sign for St. Louis after they lost that opener to Washington.
Yeah, I like St. Louis a lot this year. Actually, Nolan Arenado is my preseason plus 1200, 12-1 odds to win MVP this year. So it's encouraging to see that their bats are, they put up 9 in the 5th inning. So this is what I expect from St. Louis this year. They're one of my favorites to win the World Series, actually. So encouraging just from my personal betting point of view. But to see Steven Strasburg, playing well, I think is encouraging for Washington. As long as their 3 main guys on that mound play well, I understand they don't have the best record. I understand that their bullpen, they give up 14 runs. So it's difficult with the Nationals to get a read on them because their pitching is so good, but their bats are hit or miss, and then the bullpen's just awful. I don't know what to make of Washington. I really don't. But yeah, in terms of this game, it just brings me more conviction that the Cardinals are for real this year.
Cincinnati jumped on San Francisco with 4 in the top of the first, and the Giants tied with 4 in the bottom of the first. So already you were dead if you had the under in 1 inning. If you had the over, you're like, okay, I'm doing well. But the Reds, who got a run in the second, they scored 1 run in the final 7 innings last night, and the Giants come back and win. So the Giants have not lost back-to-back games this season, which is interesting. They got shut out by the Reds in the first game. But then both Kevin Gausman and Luis Castillo had rough numbers last night, gave up a few homers each. But, hey, the Giants, they continue to keep playing well. Yeah,
and I think, obviously, the win is encouraging. But I think what's most encouraging is that you were able to put up 4 against a good team's best pitcher. And, in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. San Francisco is a pitcher-friendly ballpark. It's not easy to hit there. So, do I put all my eggs into the basket of San Francisco right this second? No, but Kevin, I like this team. I liked them last year. Wouldn't be a surprise to see San Francisco in the thick of things when the postseason rolls around.
Yeah, Kevin Gausman was a very good pickup, and this guy kind of bounced around with the Orioles, former LSU Tiger, and he
Atlanta.
Yeah, he was with the Braves for a little bit, and just never really found himself, and he's like the guy now. They have Johnny Cueto going today.
Yeah.
The Dodgers beat the Rockies 7-0. I mentioned yesterday on the show, and I was dead wrong on it, obviously. I said these teams off of a sweep or if they get swept. Now they're heavy dogs on the road. Obviously, there's a total class mismatch with the Dodgers and a lot of teams, but the Dodgers and the Rockies and Trevor Bauer. Now, he bounced back because he picked up a no decision his last time out against Oakland. So the Dodgers laying 320 easily. Cover the run and a half, 7-0. The Rockies get 2 hits, and obviously Colorado's lineup is just not very good.
Yeah, no surprise here. I think if we can take anything away from this game, it's how well the Dodgers pitching was. But again, it's against a depleted Rockies lineup that is not in Coors Field. How much weight can you put into that? I'm not sure. But anytime you can shut out another team and only limit them to 2 total hits, definitely encouraging for the Dodgers.
In the American League, the Red Sox. They're
7 in a row now.
7 straight. They were over 3. They got swept by the Orioles. What's wrong with them? Nothing. They've been 7 in a row. And look at Minnesota. I tell you, something with the Twins. They lost the final 2 to Seattle. They blew that 6-0 lead on Sunday. They blew a 2-0 lead out of the chute. They scored 2 runs in the first. None of the final 8 innings. Boston wins 4-2. So obviously, A for the Red Sox, very encouraging. But for B for Minnesota, kind of a little backwards there. Again, early. I get it. But the Twins, though, they've had a lot of these games where they've led. There was the opener against Milwaukee, against Seattle, and now against Boston that they're not holding on to these games.
The thing with Minnesota I always find interesting, I might do some research later today. I would like to know how many times they make the postseason after making it the year prior, because it does seem that Minnesota, it's very rare they go to the postseason back-to-back seasons. And so I'm going to do some research a little bit later to find that out. But I don't know if it's a classic case of, well, this is Minnesota's year to have a bet to not make the playoffs again, or this is something where it's just early and we're freaking out over nothing and Minnesota is as good as we think they are. But I do think there's a few things telling with this game. The fact that Minnesota had an early 2-0 lead, they blew it. Also, Boston had 2 errors and they still lost. So I think there's a lot more work than might be alluded to with Minnesota. I think there's a lot more chaos under the pond, per se, than what you might see on the surface. So just eye Minnesota moving forward a little bit. They might struggle this year. Again, it's early, but they typically don't go to the postseason back-to-back seasons. They're dropping games to what you just mentioned. They lost, what was it, the last 2 games to
Seattle.
Yeah, to Seattle. And now you lose to Boston at home after leading a game you should win with Boston having 2 errors. I don't know. I think there's a lot more concern with Minnesota. It's early, so maybe don't hit the panic button, but I'm certainly looking at it from a distance.
So you had 2 games yesterday, Tom, in which the teams took a 4-0 lead and then gave up 4 runs in the bottom of the inning.
I know.
You had that in the Cincinnati-San Francisco game, and then Seattle and Baltimore. They played a doubleheader at Camden Yards.
Yeah.
The Mariners actually won the first game 4-3 in 8 innings. The Orioles tied it late, and then Seattle scored a run in the top of the 8th inning. That was the day game, and then in the night game, Seattle's up 4-0 out of the chute, and they end up losing 7-6. So the Orioles end that losing streak, that 4-game losing streak, and pick up the win over the Mariners. So, again, Seattle after, they won 3 straight. They've been a little better. But, you get these 2 teams together, you see what kind of toss-up it is. Both games were decided by a run.
Yeah, and I remember us talking about this game a few days ago because it was, got moved back
Right.
and we were talking about it 2 days ago. And I remember I really liked the over in the game. Between Baltimore and Seattle, anytime you can get over 6 runs, those bats will crush for either team. And Camden Yards is a very hitter-friendly ballpark. So anytime you can get Baltimore at home to go over a run total that's under 8, I would definitely be jumping on that, regardless of who their opponent is, unless they're facing like DeGrom or something like that, which Justice Sheffield's not. So,
well, they're close. He looked good for a little bit, and then they kind of fell apart there. The Yankees end up losing to the Blue Jays 7-3.
Talent looked awful.
Yeah, so after Garrett Cole shut down Toronto the night before, Hyun-Jin Ryu, he has pitched well against the Yankees twice this year, and Toronto, they've had a couple of these explosions this year. They had that against the Angels on Saturday night and then against the Yankees last night. And, again, Toronto's trying to find their footing. They really are. They're a young team. They're
not at home.
They're not at home. They're playing in Florida. And, look, they've already played the Yankees now, 5 times and won 3 times? That's not terrible.
No, my thing with Ryu is his health. Can he stay consistently healthy and good, not only through the regular season, but if Toronto is fortunate enough to make the postseason, then the postseason? Ryu has not really been able to do that in his career. If you recall, it may have been last year or 2 years ago when he was his last year with the Dodgers, he pitched very well the whole season up until the end when he got hurt and came back. So my conviction with Toronto is solely based on their rotation, because the bats, there's no real reason to doubt if Toronto can hit or not. They can crush the ball. The concern with Toronto, though, is their pitching staff, and it does begin with Ryu. He is their top guy. He is going to have to lead them from both a physical standpoint and a more spiritual leadership role on that team. Robbie Ray is good. He could take over as a leader on the mound for this team, but Ryu has to be that guy. That's what Toronto is asking of him. So I do think that Toronto's success this year, especially on the mound, will be dictated by the health of Ryu this season.
So Texas and Tampa Bay the night before, it was a 1-0 game. Tyler Glass had 14 strikeouts, and I always like after a 1-0 game, Tom, to go the other way and think the bats are going to break out the next night. And that happened. You had Texas win it 8-3 over Tampa Bay, and Kyle Gibson, who was so erratic. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. He ends up getting the win. He's plus 155 last night. So Texas ends their little losing streak, and again, Tampa Bay, at times, I feel like the pitching's very good, but the offense is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, they're underperforming. I think you can go ahead and say that. They just haven't had a good start to the season. They got the tar kicked out of them. Was it against Boston? Now you're losing at home to Texas. Now, Texas, they've been okay as underdogs, but mainly that has been at home in their new ballpark this season. So it's encouraging if you're a Texas Rangers fan to get another underdog victory, but this time on the road against the defending AL champions. So if you're Texas, encouraging signs. If you're Tampa Bay, again, it's kind of like Minnesota. I'm not hitting the panic button, but I'm definitely looking at it from afar.
The Royals get 5 hits last night, but they do enough to beat the Angels. LA had 12 hits, and they ended up losing that game 3-2 to the Royals. So Kansas City bounced back after they lost to LA in the first game of that series.
Former Cy Young winner Danny Duffy.
When?
A few years with the he was with the Royals. Yeah, he won the AL Cy Young.
Who are you thinking about? Danny Duffy.
Yeah, Danny Duffy won Cy Young. Yeah.
When?
Give me a sec.
Go ahead. You look that one up because I am challenging you on that one, and that's going to be you're thinking of someone else. You're thinking of a Royal. The only Royal to win a Cy Young was Zach Greinke.
Maybe he was just considered to be a Cy Young candidate, and I didn't actually win it. Because, I'm seeing articles here where he was the candidate, but, he didn't actually win. So he came close. Point is, though, Danny Duffy is a good pitcher. And so to see, only limiting the Angels to 2 runs at home, I'm not too surprised about it. Now, Danny Duffy is erratic, obviously. Yeah, he's not a Cy Young candidate every year, but he has shown flashes of it, and he had... I'll find the year while you continue talking. But
I will.
Yeah,
you can keep looking.
I'll keep looking. Yeah.
Okay, good transition because Shane Bieber won the Cy Young last year, and he picked up the Indians last night.
Setting you up for a segue. Look at that.
Indians beat the White Sox 2-1 in 10 innings, and it's so unfortunate because Bieber and Lucas Giolito traded zeros the whole game. Bieber went 9. He didn't throw a complete game. He threw 9 innings. The game went 10, and both guys were out by the 10th inning. And the Indians get 2 in the top of the 10th. Chicago actually had a chance to tie it in the bottom of the 10th. Jake Lamb hit a ball to the warning track that was caught. Would have tied the game at 2. But Bieber outduels Giolito. Cleveland wins that one 2-0. And, again, you get Bieber at that kind of price is a pretty good one.
Yeah. Honestly, Chicago, do I know they're injury riddled. Do we hit the panic button on them? Or, I know it's early, but they just seem to be losing these games that they shouldn't, and I don't know if it's because it's early in the season, they're young, or it's injuries, but I'm a little concerned. I know I probably shouldn't be, but I think the idea of Chicago being on such a pedestal to start the season, I'm just not sold they're there yet. And we actually talked about this before the season started, Kevin, in that Chicago, they have all these high odds to win the World Series, to win MVPs, to win Cy Youngs for all these young, talented players they have. But they haven't done it yet, and we're still waiting for them to do it. So, again, it's the same situation with me with Chicago this year is I'll bet on them at a high level when I see that they are a high-level caliber club, and I just have not seen that yet. Cleveland has been more impressive to me out of the AL Central than Chicago has to start this season. So, I'm not, again, it's early in the season, but, Chicago, I just got to start seeing it at some point.
Well, the problem is the White Sox have lost 2 games in extra innings at home to the Royals and Indians. They've had some close losses to the Angels, so it's just about closing games out.
Right,
the question for Chicago. Meanwhile, Detroit, let's not leave them out because they just beat Houston twice in a row on the road. And Houston was not as huge of a favorite last night, not as much as it was 2 nights ago when Zach Greinke went against Casey Mize, but Matthew Boyd shuts down the Astros, so all of a sudden Houston's lost 4 in a row. Houston got off to that great start. They dropped the final 2 to Oakland. Yeah. They end up now losing 2 straight to Detroit. So the Tigers, now Miguel Cabrera, they win again. All of a sudden, they're looking somewhat decent for a few games.
Yeah, I wouldn't put too much thought into it if I'm being honest with you. This to me is just one where Detroit got Houston over. I still like Houston, as you know. I still think the Astros, they'll be fine. Quite frankly, I just wouldn't put too much into this game. Detroit, they're due to win a few games at some point. When we get to the game today and we go over it, we'll talk more about Detroit's trends. But more times than not, you should not be betting on Detroit, even if they just came off an impressive win. The next day, I wouldn't put too much into it. I'd probably go with the other team. And Houston at home, it's tough for me to bet against them.
And you talk about the over, that you get 2 runs in the 9th inning in a meaningless game, it goes over the total. It was 7-1 going to the 9th, all of a sudden you got 2. So if you had the under of 9, we apologize. The Athletics, how about this? Down 5-0 to the Diamondbacks in Zach Gallen's first start of the season. And Oakland chips away. They win 7-5. That's a really good win for the A's. And the Diamondbacks, after beating the Reds twice, now all of a sudden they lose 2 in a row at home. And the Athletics got up to a terrible start, and now they are right back in the race. It happens that fast. They were left for dead, and all of a sudden now they take 2 from Arizona. They took 2 of 3 from Houston. They took the finale from L.A. And you count up, what is that now? 6. Is that 5 wins they have, Oakland? So that's not a bad job by them.
No, they needed that desperately, honestly, because they started in such a hole, and I know it's early, but they really got to get things going again. Honestly, if I'm Arizona, 5 runs, and, they had a 5-run lead at home against Oakland, I really just think Arizona, their bats are going to compete in that venue in Chase Field with almost any team in MLB. I do think Arizona has a ton of conviction with their bats in that venue, and Ketel Marte does not get enough credit for what he actually does to a lineup. So I'm not surprised Arizona was able to put up 5, but it's a good win for Oakland moving forward. They desperately needed that. They need to get back on track.
Let's look at today and tonight's action, since you got games coming up in just a little bit. Washington and St. Louis, Adam Wainwright on the mound, and he is a short favorite. I always like Adam Wainwright as a dog at home, but as a favorite, not too sure here. And the Nationals, after they got blown out last night, Washington could be worth a look here.
By the way, do you want Danny Duffy? It was 2016. He went 12-3. He had a complete game, 179 innings pitched. 188 total strikeouts. So it was. He didn't win it that year, but he was definitely getting votes. Now I gotta go find this.
Come on, you had all your information in front of you.
Almost. I'm sorry.
So, all right. So Washington, St. Louis. Any thoughts, really quick?
Washington, St. Louis. Yeah. I actually do. As you know, I do like St. Louis. But however, St. Louis, they have lost 6 straight home games against the NL East. After they win at home the game prior. I don't know if there's a little bit of arrogance there, but it's definitely something to consider. Now you're going up against a team with good pitching. Now, Joe Ross, I wouldn't consider him one of the top 3 pitchers of that staff, but Joe Ross can hold his own against an Adam Wainwright right now. And then it's a day game, so balls are going to be tougher to pick up on as they're being thrown to home plate. I think St. Louis will be fine, but I'm not convinced that they win this game due to the trends and the pitching matchup on the mound.
Corbin Burns goes from Milwaukee, and he's one of the best stories for the Brewers. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a win to his name because he has run into his offense has been bad in his starts. That against Minnesota, against St. Louis, they couldn't get anything going, and the Brewers lost both those games. So now he's a heavy favorite against Jake Arrieta, who, again, was good one time with the Cubs and kind of fell off. Now back with the Cubs again. And Chicago got the win against Milwaukee last night, 3-2. So now they're a heavy favorite here. And again, you still know what you can get from Arrieta, but Burns is still a quality pitcher.
Yeah, I actually like Burns. Burns' name has actually popped up now on the Cy Young betting odds list, which he wasn't at to start the season. Now he's on the list, so clearly odds makers have taken a liking to him if they're going to go ahead and put him on the betting list. And he's not at the bottom of the betting list too. He's above half. So they do like him in that regards. Milwaukee, they have lost 4 of their last 5 games when facing the Cubs as a favorite after losing at home the game prior. So look for Chicago to possibly win. Plus 160 as an underdog. I think there's a lot to like right there.
Cincinnati and San Francisco, they wrap up their series. They've split the first 2. Johnny Cueto against his former team, but he has faced Seattle and Colorado so far, so not really great lineup.
Right.
Tyler Mahle, he's interesting because he was 3-12, something like that, 2 seasons ago, and somehow stuck in the Reds rotation, but closed out last year. The Reds went 5-1 in his final 6 starts, and they're 2-0 so far this year. So he's pitched well of late. A lot of people think that he's not a great pitcher. He's not a great pitcher. He's 15 strikeouts so far in 9 innings. So he's been decent. He's a guy that you don't want to sleep on. So he, I think, is worth a look this afternoon against the Giants.
Yeah, and quite frankly, you can, like you said, you can struggle a little bit and still be good. I think when you talk about Cincinnati's pitchers, too, they pitch in a ballpark that is hitter-friendly. So I do think you need to take that in consideration as well when you're really taking the overview of Cincinnati's pitchers. Luis Castillo gave up 4 runs in the first inning. He's still the ace of that club. I'm still betting on him more times than not. So, take everything with a grain of salt. Cincinnati, they've lost 6 straight games when facing the NL West as a favorite after losing on the road the game prior. So you see plus 100 right there, and it's San Francisco's ace at home. I think there's some reason to like San Francisco, but plus 100 isn't overly valuable odds to me. So this is one game I'm probably going to stay away from just because I can't make a decision between the two. There are reasons to like Cincinnati. There are trends to like San Francisco. Neither money line provides a ton of value for me in terms of my conviction on betting this game. So this is one I'm probably going to stay away from. The under 8.5 does look mighty juicy though.
Joe Musgrove threw no-hitters last time out against Texas, and I guess another stellar line from Pittsburgh, so we'll see what he does, laying 205. Yeah, bounce back spot for the Padres, and Musgrove facing his former team, the Pirates, so I think there's obviously going to be
regression
and motivation maybe on Pittsburgh's part against the guy that they have seen. And for Musgrove, not to say he's got nothing to prove because you come off no-hitter, but you got to expect things have to go backwards.
You would think. I mean, also, San Diego, they've lost 4 straight games against Pittsburgh when they're the favorite after a loss. Now, they just lost Pittsburgh, so there's a trend now saying they should lose again. You see minus 205. No, thank you. I'll pass on that. Maybe go with the plus 185 or not bet on this game at all.
Philly and New York, Zach Wheeler against his old team. David Peterson has had a couple bad starts against the Phillies so far in his short career, but for Wheeler, he didn't pitch well against the Braves his last time out, and the Phillies have lost the first 2. Also, Philadelphia 6-5, but they could have lost the game to Atlanta Sunday night on that questionable call at home.
Yeah.
But the Phillies kind of go a little backwards here, and the Mets, they're playing all right again. They have a good chance to win today because Jacob deGrom isn't pitching, so that's have a chance to win.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out, isn't it? Your best pitcher isn't playing, and all of a sudden your odds go up. But the Mets, they've won 7 straight games when they face the National League on a Wednesday night, so they got that going for them. They are the underdog, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So plus value there at home. I think there's some reasons to like the Mets in this one.
Charlie Moore is laying 240. My God.
Why would you bet that? That's crazy. That's such a high line for baseball.
But especially, Charlie Morton's off a good start against the Phillies, and now he's laying 240 against the Marlins. See what's proven they can hit the ball.
They just beat him twice.
Yeah, at least the last few games. I don't know much about Nick Neidert. To be honest with you, I'm not going to say I do.
Really?
The only Nick N I know is Nick Nolte. So, but Nick Neidert, though, takes them out. That's just a ton to lay if you're the Braves.
Nick Nolte, shout out to Blue Chips.
Yep.
I don't know. Miami, they've lost 14 straight on a Wednesday night when they face the National League. So I'm not going to take the plus 210 this. I'm not taking minus 240 either. I am going to simply not take this game.
Just say no. Just say no to Neidert. So
no to Neidert.
The Rockies and Dodgers, they wrap up the night in the National League. Dustin May against John Gray. It rhymes. But look, it's easy to just take the run line with the Dodgers at this point because Colorado can't score.
No, I don't think you overthink this one. Minus 260 is a lot, though. Personally, I'm not comfortable taking something that high, but if you are, take them. I do not see any way the Rockies win this game. Now, Dustin May. We have talked about concerns with him in, the 5th or 6th inning. That's when the concern comes. So maybe live bet this game if it's a close game. If it's one-run game going into the 5th and 6th inning, maybe look at Colorado's run line there and maybe take a chance. But I think minus 260 is just way too expensive for the Dodgers, and I have no conviction in the Colorado bats away from Denver for a plus 220 line.
This game's just getting underway, so can't really help you with the beginning of the game.
Sorry.
But the Yankees and Blue Jays, Corey Kluber and T.J. Zeuch. T.J. Zeuch, former Pittsburgh Panther, gets the start. He was actually a standout at the University of Pittsburgh. And Corey Kluber, he's just not the guy he was.
No,
that's the problem. I think he's almost going to name recognition here, that you know who Zeuch is, and also Kluber, who won some Cy Youngs, but he's not the guy he was.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm going to stay away from this game, obviously, because it's already started. Yeah. But 10.5, by the way, is an insane amount. Maybe you look to the under there. Toronto, they have lost 4 straight games when facing New York during the daytime after a win. That trend is a bit too specific for me to have any conviction on. I'm going to stay away from that game. Mainly, it already started. I don't know. I'm with you. Kluber. He's not the same guy he was. Toronto, their bats have been very good. I do think, though, if there is a game New York takes against Toronto, it is this one. But personally, I'm going to stay away from it.
All right, let's quickly scroll through these. Let's move along here. And anything you like here in these couple American League games, a few afternoon games and some night games, anything that sticks out? Because really, for me, nothing sticks out.
No, not really. I mean, most of these games they're so early too. I will say I do like Cleveland today. We had talked a little bit about the Cleveland-Chicago game yesterday. Cleveland, they've won 4 straight road games when they are the underdog against the American League on a Wednesday. Chicago is the favorite here, so that would tell you Cleveland should win. Zach Plesac, to me, is a better pitcher than Carlos Rodon. I actually think Zach Plesac might be in the running of a Cy Young at the end of the year if he performs well, what he's capable of, what we saw out of him last year with Cleveland. I like Cleveland in this one on the road, getting the win against a good team, and they are the underdog, so there is plus value there.
And the Twins actually have their 2 best pitchers going today,
Right,
Barrios
they do.
and Kent Maeda against Boston, trying to slow down the Red Sox. Eduardo Rodriguez, pretty good pitcher for the Red Sox, and he won his debut against Baltimore. So that is the look at that. Don't forget about the buy picks. Want to remind you about our handicappers, and you can find their selections.
Also, Rick Porcello won the AL Cy Young in 2016,
Okay.
so that makes a lot of sense why Danny Duffy was in the running when you.
Rick
There must have
Porcello
been, yeah,
was
exactly.
I'm telling you catch lightning in a bottle for a season. That's what happened to Porcello. So NBA, our daily picks, $29.95. You can purchase the selections of any handicapper you want for $29.95 each. Also guaranteed picks, $39.95. The guaranteed picks, it's only one selection from our handicappers. Pay after it wins. So basically, if it's a winner, you pay $39.95, but also you win your bet.
Right.
If it's a loser, you pay nothing. So
make sure you
simple as that.
wager your winnings over 30 otherwise.
Right, exactly. So we have that for NBA, for Major League Baseball, for the NHL, and also want to remind you about our contest,
Yes.
too. If you leave a comment below our video, leave a comment with your name and user ID on VegasInsider.com, and also make sure you're a subscriber to our YouTube channel. You leave your best bet for today. Do not put the Yankees Blue Jays game that just started.
Yes, we will not take that game.
It's got to be a game that's not started yet. But
Don't start taking Rafael Nadal. Yeah, we're not.
No live betting except before the game. That's the thing. We said any bet that cannot be live betting
Yeah.
except before the game.
Yes.
So leave a best bet for today: baseball, NBA, hockey, whatever Tom does to
Oscars.
Yeah, any of that. And if you are a winner, you're in the drawing for a week's worth of picks from handicapper VegasInsider.com. If you are not registered, it's very easy to register for an ID at VegasInsider.com. You go up to this yellow register button that says register, and you go to free membership, register now, and then you fill out the information there. It's free, F-R-E-E, free.
That's
so
right.
At least the good news is you don't pay for that, so you can be a winner and do it all for free.
Like that TurboTax commercial.
Exactly. Free. So you can check it out there. Leave the under the comments or YouTube under the YouTube video your best bet, your name, and your user ID, and you'll be eligible to win the free.
And we didn't get to the RBC Heritage today, but because that does start on Thursday, I don't know, maybe tomorrow, if there's something you guys like. But again, it has to be before the event starts. And that's a big one. Futures markets don't do, because we're not going to consider that as well. So it has to be the day of and before the game starts. Those are the rules.
By the way, too, if you want to check out Tom's video, the RBC, he has the Daily Insider here. Who's your guest?
Matt Cooper, really insightful. He's worked with ESPN, Forbes. He is a betting expert, so he did really well. Mainly, the thing with the RBC Heritage you need to understand is it's small greens, so birdies will be ample. Also, it is near the water, and it is lined with trees. So if a golfer hits the fairway, he's not out of the clear just yet, because the fairway is riddled with tree lining. So it's a very narrow course. Accuracy is huge. If your golfer gets on the green, any golfer gets on the green, birdies are going to be coming because the greens are very, very small. Using science and math, it tells you small greens makes a closer opportunity to getting the ball in the hole. So don't be afraid to bet in terms of a lot of birdies being scored in this event, but also make sure you're choosing accurate golfers over powerful ones.
So check out Tom's video there, the RBC Heritage, and also Matt Blunt's predictions for the RBC. You can find that there on our homepage on VegasInsider.com, and we'll talk a little more about that tomorrow.
I got movies to watch, so
He's got the Oscars are coming up. He's got to know everything about. He's got to know best lighting, best sound effects.
I think I've knocked out
design.
24 of the 34 movies so far. My life has gone from brackets to cinema, so we'll see what comes after that.
I've seen The Trial of Chicago 7. I think that's the only movie. An excellent movie if you want to catch it on Netflix. But that's the only movie I've seen. He gave me the list of all of them.
That's right.
I'm not going to watch all of them. All right, for Thom Cunningham, I am Kevin Rogers. We appreciate you watching, as always. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon, right here on the Daily Insider on VegasInsider.com. And Tom, give us the closing line.
Good luck with your bets.